Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving headfirst into a grim, dark fable that is literally going to dismantle everything you thought you knew about heroism, and honestly, about the ego itself. We're looking at a story known as the Great Dialectic of the Sovereign Light. Now, if you're used to those classic tales where the hero braves the darkness, learns a valuable lesson, and comes home victorious, well, you are in for a massive shock. This narrative takes all those comforting storytelling tropes and absolutely shatters them. It leaves us with this profound, frankly terrifying look at what happens when human will collides with the vast, uncaring void.
Okay, so to truly grasp our protagonists, the Wanderers, terrifying journey, we first need to understand the philosophical engine that's actually driving this descent into darkness. It's built entirely on what's called the Fichtean dialectic. Basically, it's a framework that moves through three distinct stages. First, you've got a starting state, the thesis. Then, that state encounters its direct opposing force, the antithesis. And finally, the massive clash between these two results in a transformative resolution known as the synthesis. Keep this framework in the back of your mind because it's the exact map of our Wanderer's horrific evolution.
Here is our map of the Great Dialectic for today's explainer. We'll start at the thesis with the predictable bizarre, then we'll move into the antithesis of the uncanny forest, uncover the honest guest's truth, witness the breaking of the lantern, arrive at the synthesis of the living dark, and finally examine how this entirely inverts the hero's journey. It's a path taking us from the stagnant peace of civilization straight into cosmic nihilism and the absolute rejection of meaning. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Thesis, the predictable bizarre. We have to start with human civilization. Imagine a place sheltered by the high walls of the world, where the Watchmen and our hero begin. And wow, the contrast here is just incredible. On one side, we have the marketplace bazaar. This is the heart of the world, defined by what the source text calls a stagnant peace. Life here, it relies entirely on the rhythm of a predictable rising sun. It's transactional, it's hollow. People just surrender to the collective and wait passively for some kind of external salvation. But right outside those high walls lies the uncanny forest, a festering wild of liquid ash and swallowing gloom. The bazaar is the ultimate thesis. It's really just a comforting story humans tell themselves to ward off the void. But amidst all these merchants trading under that common sun, our protagonist, the Wanderer, totally stands out. He doesn't rely on the predictable sun at all. Instead, he carries a lantern, which the sources beautifully describe as a splinter of lightning caged in iron. He is asserting a sovereign light that is entirely his own, boldly declaring that his sun is not the mountain's sun, nor is it the valley's. Now the Watchman, an ancient gardener of this threshold, observes this absolute self-assertion with this intense mix of wonder and dread. Because the Watchman knows something the Wanderer doesn't. He knows the safety of the bazaar is a total illusion, and that fragile thesis is about to be severely tested. Section 2. Antithesis, the uncanny forest. So the bazaar's safety is just a mirage, right? And the very moment they cross the threshold, bam, we meet the antithesis. Leaving the civilized world, the contrast becomes absolute. They leave behind a world that only knows how to bless the predictable and step into a forest that doesn't just grow, it festers. The Watchman watches with pure dread as the protective narrative of human civilization literally suffocates under the oppressive canopy of the true wild. The story of human importance begins to flicker, bleed, and choke against this rising antithesis. The Wanderer's sovereign light is suddenly thrust into a space that aggressively, violently opposes it. Section 3. The honest guest's truth. Lurking in the liquid ash of the forest's edge, a shadow grasps a new, deeply nihilistic philosophy. And this is delivered through the cold clarity of a figure known as the honest guest. The absolute core of this is the concept of cosmic indifference. The guest strips away all the romanticism of the Wanderer's quest, totally dismantling it. He reveals to the shadow that a torchbearer's internal certainty, that proud sovereign light, is nothing more than a comforting fairy tale. It's just a story we tell ourselves to mask the horrifying reality of cosmic indifference. In this nihilistic framework, the independent ego isn't a strength to be celebrated, no way. It's a massive liability that blinds us to a higher, much darker truth. The universe doesn't care about your internal fire, it demands absolute submission. Section 4. Breaking the lantern. To actually survive this cosmic indifference, the honest guest counsels a devastatingly necessary act. He lays out these chilling steps, which represent the absolute rejection of meaning. Step 1, you have to acknowledge that human will is absolutely nothing when confronted by the vast, swallowing gloom. Step 2, the deliberate breaking of the lantern. You literally have to intentionally destroy your external fire.
And step 3, you must swallow the dying ember of your own existence. Your ego is a burden in the dark, so to progress, you have to willingly destroy it. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy of this fable. Truth is found through total self-destruction. This journey, it is no longer about overcoming the dark like your standard run-of-the-mill hero would. It's about merging with the terror until the boundary between the self and the void completely vanishes. The independent ego has to be strangled by the forest. There is no victory over the woods. There is only submission to them. Section 5. Synthesis, the living dark. Which brings us to the grim synthesis. This is where the individual becomes the very nightmare they feared. The clash between the thesis of the ego and the antithesis of the wild results in this horrific final state. As the wanderer's anatomy is forcibly transformed just to survive the cosmic indifference, he achieves what the text calls a horrific, beautiful unity. His independent ego is totally strangled. His veins glow like burning copper, and his eyes turn to literal ash. He doesn't conquer the woods conquer him. He becomes a living dark that burns from within, an internalized spark that isolates him from humanity forever. Section 6. The hero's journey inverted. If you look closely at this, the narrative brilliantly subverts every single expectation we have about traditional storytelling. The contrast is just stunning. Think about it. In a traditional hero's journey, you have a triumphant homecoming, but here, the hero completely disappears into the crushing dark. Normally, a hero returns to society with a boon, like a gift of knowledge or power. Our wanderer, he faces permanent exile. Internally, a traditional hero ascends to enlightenment. The wanderer, though, experiences a rapid descent into internal madness. And while a typical hero masters their environment, our protagonist is violently forced to transform his own anatomy just to survive it. Instead of returning to the high walls of the world, his internal certainty is strangled, isolating him forever as a terrifying vessel for the flame. Now, think about the watchman who witnessed all of this go down. He is left utterly changed, but he doesn't have a tale of glorious victory to carry back to the predictable bazaar. Instead, he is left with profound wonder and terror at this festering silence. The journey doesn't end with a celebration of the person who started it. It literally concludes with their total self-destruction. The hero that walked in, he no longer exists. The great dialectic concludes with the creation of something entirely new, something born from the ashes of a destroyed identity. The synthesis is absolutely not a return to order. The sovereign light of the ego ends in silence, leaving behind only a lonely, burning phantom that walks the woods alone. He is a permanent exile now, a creature no human can look upon without absolute terror. It leaves us with a truly haunting realization about the stories we tell ourselves to ward off the void. We all live in our own predictable bazaars, cultivating our own sovereign lights. But this fable forces us to ask, what happens when the universe finally demands submission? When the high walls of your world fall, and you face the cosmic indifference of the uncaring wild, what will happen to your sovereign light? Will you fight the dark, or will you break your own lantern? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the stories you tell yourself, and I'll see you next time.